Hey there, music lovers. Ever wondered what it's like to be a music major in college? Well, today I'm going to interview a very special guest, myself. Join me as I dive into my own experiences, challenges, and the harmonious journey of being a music major. Stay tuned, you won't want to miss this. How do I balance coursework and practical teaching experience? Well, I'll tell you this. College is all about opportunity, and part of that is just learning how you function as a person because you're going to have a lot of coursework. You're going to have theory, you're going to have music history, you're going to have pedagogy, you're going to have education classes. And you'll also be given a lot of real life opportunities. For instance, for music ed majors, you'll have the opportunity to do some teaching. So one of the biggest skills is learning how to time manage. And you get a little bit of that in high school, but you want to go ahead, document what you have. So maybe create a calendar, a folder. Nowadays, you can go ahead and use certain apps that just help time management, and it helps create a flow. So you want to make sure that you're always taking care of your classes. And you want to make sure that you don't overload what you're doing with opportunities outside of class. By doing this, you're going to find that you'll learn a lot and you'll be able to make some extra money and enjoy your college experience. What strategies can I use to engage diverse learners? Well, when you're a college student and as you're approaching the end, you're going to get more and more opportunities to actually teach. Some might be student teaching, some might be extra help at a private school, and some could be just having your own private studio. And you're going to have many different learners. My recommendation is that, one, you first need to know a little bit about their background, their learning styles, and their abilities. Then you want to go ahead and create a plan, maybe scaffold, and you're going to teach some of the most fundamental skills regardless. In fact, that's really you as the college student need to start regardless. You make sure those fundamental skills are good. Then, depending on their learning styles and diagnosing and evaluating, what they're good at and what they need to work with, start experimenting with what you're doing. All right. So if they're a kinesthetic learner, which a lot of music people are, get them doing things, okay? Physically go step by step in a process. So how do you put a trumpet together? How do you put a flute together? How do you play a paradiddle? Okay, physically do that. Have them do that. If they're good at the listening side, perhaps you have some audiobooks or maybe you have some recordings you can have them listen to. All right, definitely give them the opportunity to use the different senses. So, what's the secret to surviving late night rehearsals and early morning classes? Well, coffee, resilience, or some kind of magical metronome. So, your life will fundamentally change as a college student. As I said before, time management becomes a really big deal. In college, you're not working or learning 9 to 5 or even, 8 to 4 or something like that. What you're doing is you're always doing something and you have to have a schedule. For instance, in your later part of years, you may be doing student teaching, having a studio, things like that, but you also might have night classes. You might have night rehearsals. You'll have concerts and things. And so you definitely need to pace yourself. You need to exercise so you can keep that energy going. You're not going to get a lot of sleep during the week because you should be practicing, okay? And you may, heaven forbid, you might actually have to work to pay for rent, to pay for food, to pay for textbooks. And in fact, one of my last years of teaching, just before I student taught, I had a 21 course semester that I had classes from 7:30 in the morning till about 4. And then at 7:30 at night, I actually worked at the local casino on a riverboat in Baton Rouge. And that was from 7:30 to 4:30 in the morning, slept for a few hours, and woke up again. And I'll tell you what, there were some days where it was incredibly difficult to wake up. But my secret to waking up was I had 3 alarms, one digital, one wind up, and the thing that usually got me up for my first class was a floodlight that was right above my bed, timed just in time for me to get to class, which ultimately warmed up my body and got me ready to go. How can I build strong relationships with my professors and mentors? Well, as a college student, I wish I could go into the future and ask myself this, because this would have changed a lot of what happened in my life. So, as most people know, building relationships with your teachers and vice versa, teachers with your students, there's a lot more quality connection, more learning, and just overall better experience. And as a college student wanting to go into the field of teaching and music teaching, you would want to do a few things that would get you out there. And a lot of times, college students, they want to do their coursework, they want to eat, sleep, and party. Well, if you're really taking your college degree, which you're more than likely paying for, you want to go ahead and take advantage of every opportunity. And sometimes the opportunities aren't going to just say, hey, come and take advantage. What you got to do is you got to ask professors, hey, Mr. So-and-so, is there anything going on that I could help with this particular project? Maybe it's an after-school lessons project, or I hear that there's this concert. Is there a way that I can get involved? Or maybe you may choose to take a part-time job at a performance venue, or maybe at a school, or maybe you can work at the local music store and even maybe do repairs. There's a lot of things you can do, and there's a lot of opportunity that is never asked and never acted upon because they never communicated. So get to know your professors and ask casually, respectfully, and see what can really materialize based upon your excited and passionate interest in being more as a professional. Whether you're performing on stage or conducting a large ensemble, stage fright is a real deal. Now, a lot of people, especially post-COVID, have had issues with mental health and anxiety. And trust me, I have made plenty of mistakes myself with anxiety. In fact, I'll share a little story. I was getting ready for my juries, which is where you perform in front of the brass and percussion professor for one of your final grades. And I had so many finals coming up. I popped some of those caffeine pills, and I did it literally for days. And so I came into my performance and I was playing trombone, and I was so jittery that my trombone was creating a natural vibrato. Now, I had a 2-movement piece. I didn't do so hot in the first one. And then one of the professors cracked a joke, and it just relaxed me. And I knew it wasn't that big of a deal. I told him the situation. And then my second movement was great. But one of the big things is when you're dealing with anxiety, you got to put it in perspective. Take a step back, breathe in deep, get that oxygen to the brain, kind of make sure you stretch out, get those endorphins going, and practice playing or doing whatever you're doing that creates this anxiety or this tension, and do it in front of people. Put yourself in the scenario where you're literally practicing what's causing the anxiety. And you'll find you'll be able to manage it a little bit better with time. And if for some reason you don't, because there are people, I had a student that almost literally cracked, and he ran around the entire school. The assistant principal started chasing him. I had a student try to get him, and maybe that wasn't the best thing, but we ended up having him go into a safe room and having his parents come and everything. But that was a kid that did not control his anxiety, and it was pretty severe. So if you know you have really severe anxiety, definitely see a medical professional, do the right thing. But if it's just normal performance anxiety, put yourself in a position where you're practicing getting over that anxiety, taking deep breaths, drinking water, not eating really bad foods, and getting enough sleep so that you wake up refreshed and you're ready to go. How do I navigate the politics of music departments? Well, as you graduate out of college, you're going to find that each music director, teacher thinks that what they do is the most important thing. And so you want to have less of the segmented music department and more of this wholesome, we work together kind of scenario. Easier done with some than others, but the relationship you build with these other directors is crucial. So you're getting into your first school. You want to make friends, and or at least you want to have positive relationships and good communication with your colleagues. For instance, you want to communicate anytime you're using the stage. Now, sometimes there's a calendar that's already set up and you have to put in the paperwork. Earlier, the better. 2, you also want to make sure you know what students are in your program opposed to the other music programs. And by the way, music students love being involved, so they may be in 1, 2, or 3 different music programs and or other arts. So you got to be aware of that. And 4 or 3 rather, you're going to share time with the general population for taking kids out early. Maybe you're going to a competition. Maybe you're doing large group assessment. There are different things that you're going to pull kids out. So don't get too paranoid when these students get pulled out of your class because they have to do other things, whether that's a music department thing or perhaps even, social studies or English or something like that. Be respectful, communicate, document early. And by the way, the music department is great with helping out each other and kind of covering each other in the last second type scenarios. But also don't underestimate your custodian. Your custodian can make or break your events for sure. So your custodian, your mentor, as you go into the school, you're going to be assigned a mentor. Sometimes that's in your department, and sometimes it's not. Okay? And then your assistant principal who's directly in charge of you and your principal. So yes, there's politics. And yes, sometimes to get love, you have to play the game. For instance, we have to advocate to keep our programs. We have to have enough students to sustain having a program. And by the way, some music programs are not created equal when it comes to funding. For instance, a band program is a lot more expensive to run because you have to buy instruments and maintain them than a choir is. However, there are benefits and ways you can advocate for a band program because 1, a lot of times high school band programs support the athletics. Now, sometimes people get caught in this wheel cycle where administrators might treat the band program as wagging the dog from the tail. Okay, so you always have to advocate for your program in terms of we are here for the music, but we are also here to support our school and our team. So navigate politics very carefully, keep things positive. You have to do something extra. Maybe you have to do an extra pep rally or something of that nature to get a little love here and there. It's all about share, and ultimately you come out with a win-win. What resources can I tap into for lesson planning and curriculum development? Well, ladies and gentlemen, I will tell you this. Life from when I did college in the 90s, late 90s to early 2000s, in comparison to now, it's very different. So you have a ton of resources available to you now. Okay, so let's just start with some of the basic things. So nowadays you have websites. You have all kinds of websites. You have websites that help teachers with classroom management, like Better Learning. I believe it's betterlearning.com, but if not, the organization is called Better Learning. When you're actually teaching and you're involved with some of these websites, they can also provide personal coaching on Zoom or Google Meet. You also have certain websites like blogs. You can look up music education blogs. Quick little harmless plug. Check out bandbuzz.org. I do a band website blog. And you also have things like NAFME. You have regular social media. People are posting techniques, how to improve things, how to answer things. Check out forums online. Reddit has a lot of great questions that are asked and people responding. So you have those. Now, if you go back, I don't want to say the Stone Age because I'm not my dad, but you go back and you would have to spend hours upon hours at the library. You know, they had computers for searching up books and different magazines and publications, but if you're an elementary music teacher, they actually do have these big workbooks in this packet box kind of thing that has a lot of resources. If you're a current band director or orchestra director, this is a fabulous book right here. This is Habits of a Successful Music Education Student by Mary Lynn and Scott Rush. And Scott Rush does a series of books that have everything from director responsibilities. It has what to teach in the first, second, third year. How do you set a basics about the having your own booster program? Has a lot of super useful stuff. In fact, I'm not getting paid for any of this, but Scott Rush's books are some of my favorites. Now, there's a ton of other ones. Great and easy to find on Amazon. But his are really kind of to the point. A lot of list orders. It gives some forms, like if you're doing assessments and different things like that. So those are some resources. You also have people, okay? So you have band directors, you have music teachers out there. If you're student teaching, take advantage of that situation. Ask questions constantly, okay? Don't annoy your master teacher, or supervising teacher. That would be the PC way of saying it now. But ask questions wherever you can. YouTube is a really big deal. Check out videos on that for lesson planning. Now, one of the things about lesson planning that has evolved over time is lesson planning used to be a lot of writing and not really getting down to the points, okay? Lesson planning is important, and I do it still to this day. I'm 21, 22 years of teaching. But what I do is I keep it in organizational outline form. Okay, I know what I'm going to go through, and I basically say, okay, in my lesson plans, if I have to prepare something, I'm going to do it. And I'm always going to include some kind of review. I'm going to include some kind of warm-up and something new, something that engages the students. And the one thing, sometimes these kids have attention spans of microseconds. So you have to have that hook. Make sure you hook them in, reel them in, get them to buy into what you're trying to teach them. And you know what? Some kids, that's super easy. And some kids, you're just digging in the trenches, my friend. So take advantage. Try to make things interesting. Hook them in. If you can relate it to something they're into, that's going to be super helpful. Now, curriculum development. So development, let's think about this. Basically, what are you going to be teaching and how is it going to evolve over the time? And having this whole idea of having a curriculum map. So say you're going to teach these skills in August, September, November, and then you're going to teach these skills in, December and January. But you got to keep this in mind too. A lot of directors, they think, I'm going to teach to the concert, which is great. And you should, okay? But the minds of our students need to be stimulated, especially our performing arts students, okay? So I'm not saying cram a whole bunch of information all the time at them, okay? They are there to perform, but give them some food for thought. How do I stay inspired and passionate about music education? Well, this is something that I'm sure a lot of people have a different opinion about, but I really, truly good-heartedly believe this, is that if you only teach what you learned in college, you are going to get bored, you're going to get tired, and then you're going to question whether or not you should stay in education. And we don't want this. We have had so many teachers drop from our amazing field and our craft since COVID. We don't want this. So how do you stay passionate? How do you get excited about what you're doing? Well, to me, I think it's kind of clear for me. For me, is I am a lifelong learner. I always want to grow, and I'm active in the field. Okay, so rather than just being, for myself, being just a middle school band director, what I do is I am also a district audition site chairman and host at times. I also research. I do my own blogs. I used to do a podcast. I do videos. I try to stay current with this. I wish I could play more, but I do have a music malady, which is a musical injury. So I don't play as much as I would. Now, if I was in a different situation, like a lot of other directors, I would play, get in the symphony. One of the things I've always wanted to do is to work with, or at least for, the State Board of Education, or maybe even better yet, be a certified assessment judge, maybe get involved with the local university. There are all kinds of things that you can do, but you don't want to stay stagnant. There should be a level of growth. Just like we try to grow our students, we can't expect them to have that passion of doing what we do if we don't have it. So we have to find ways to grow ourselves. And you know what? The cool thing is we practice this concept all the time. So actually implement your theory and you'll go a long way. What's the best way to collaborate with other music majors? Well, let's think about this. Music majors are individuals that are often in a class with you, and it's not really a big class. So you're going to see these same people over and over again. And in theory, you should have a lot of opportunity to actually collaborate. Some ideas would be do a joint recital, perhaps do a research project, or work on a composition together, do something that requires teammates. And, one of the great things about being in music is that we are passionate about what we do. You almost have to be passionate to be in music or be a music ed major. But you can also get into things like fraternities and sororities. Do things for the betterment of not only music, but also of people. For instance, I was in Phi Mu Alpha, and we would do things like going to the convalescent homes and singing happy birthday, kind of visiting, and just kind of putting on a show. In addition, you could also do things that include the school. You can do something to promote them, maybe sing the national anthem at the baseball game or something of that nature. Try to find and take a moment to find your allies on your own and see what kind of interesting and creative things you can pull off. What advice would you give your past self before stepping onto a college campus? Well, first I would put myself down and say, self, this is what I would tell you. And ultimately what it would be a lot of things that I have hindsight from. So first, if you want to be a music ed major, do you like students? Because you're going to have to deal with a lot of things that you're not going to be taught. And I do. I really do. Okay. I would also say, self, are you prepared to go a bunch in debt for your ambitions? And I did. I think I got student loans, even with scholarships. My student loans made it to about $160,000. Now, eventually, I did get those. I paid a ton of it off, but I also did get the remaining forgiven, which was fantastic. Thank you so much. I would say, self, what do you want to do after you get out of college. Now, that's kind of a broad statement. So if I want you to think, where do you want to live? Do you want to stay in Louisiana? Do you want to go to California, Colorado, Texas, Virginia? And I'll tell you a little side note. I never thought I would ever be teaching in Northern Virginia. I'm glad I did. I make good money here, but never thought about that. And I would say, think about where you want to go, kind of create a plan, and think about where you want to kind of cater toward. Because you remember when we talked about taking advantage of opportunities? If you start catering and pushing things toward that direction, you could perhaps have a job set up before you even get out of college, which would be ideal, right? Also, I would give myself the opportunity, and I would say it's okay to make mistakes. Definitely make your mistakes so you can learn from them. I would say get more involved. Get more involved with the school. There was one semester where I didn't do a lot of ensembles because I was preoccupied with making sure I had enough money. I was working more. So these are those little things. And then I would also take advantage of when I had the opportunity on occasion to go home and see my family. I would do that too. Because remember, you're working toward a career, but your career is not your life. Reflecting is such a powerful tool. So take advantage. Take this moment to ask yourself the questions that you want to know for the future and see if maybe you could have a brighter path before you. If you found value in today's video, it would mean so much to me if you could subscribe and hit that bell. Love to continue the conversation. Everyone, have a great night. See ya.